We keep hearing that the pace of change is constantly increasing, but is that really what's going on? It's more about priorities, and they keep shifting continually and more often. Now, the problem with trying to implement change is that the structures that we've created in our organizations are at odds with adaptability, and that's just a fancy way of saying the structures, processes, and rules we put in place aren't adaptable enough to allow us to respond to what the market wants. So here's 5 things that you can do immediately to break that siloed mentality. What's up, everybody? Jason here, the founder of Lean Change. Thanks for stopping by the channel today. So let's dive into these 5 things. First of all, start with small cross-functional wins. And that's something that's easy to say and might be difficult to do, but here's what you can do. There's always natural collaborators in organizations. That means there's people just like you that think silos absolutely suck, but they feel powerless to try to break them or do something about it. That typically happens because the organization rewards behavior when people behave in a way the organization expects, and when people color outside the lines, they get punished for it. So even organizations that say it's safe to fail, we want to think outside the box, they don't reward that behavior. They reward the old behavior. So look for natural collaborators. So that means people from different departments that typically know each other. Maybe people carpool together, maybe they play hockey on the weekends together, maybe they're just outspoken leaders that know how to color outside the lines in a safe way. So find those people and connect them. A tip for doing this is making your work visible. So in this example here, this was a program lead who decided to make cross-functional work visible, kind of like at an air traffic control level is what I like to say. And that just means that he would onboard work. You can see the colors of the sticky notes represent different types of work, and then people would get in front of it once a week to do a sync meeting. It's simple and easy to do, and with remote work being very popular today, you can do the same thing with a Miro board or a mural board. So this isn't designed to take away task tracking systems. It's designed to be an air traffic control system that gives you better data to make decisions with. Next up, use storytelling. Storytelling is a phenomenal way to deal with complexity, especially when you're talking about breaking silos and trying to become more adaptable. People love stories. They love hearing stories about what other teams or what other organizations do, and we tend to copy and paste those things. Now, people will say you can't do what other organizations do and expect the same results, which is true on a certain level, but that's how humans work. We see something we like, we copy and paste it, and we go, well, that part wasn't quite right. Maybe we should tweak it a little bit. So encourage storytelling. And one practice I used a lot when working as an Agile coach, and I was fortunate enough where we were in person, so this was well before COVID, that I would take clients to visit other clients and see how they were visualizing work and what they were doing to create different ceremonies that would break down silos. And in one case, I'd brought, I think, 14 or 15 product people from one organization to another one. I don't want to mention any names because I don't want to get these organizations in trouble. And let's just say these 14 or 15 product people didn't want to go back to their own office because we had created a space at the other client that was like a beautiful mind up on a wall. And as soon as they started asking those people questions and they started sharing stories, the 13 or 14 people that I brought over there started thinking, well, that probably wouldn't work here, but maybe we could. And that's what you want. You want that maybe we could seed being planted. Next, we want to encourage iterative thinking through experiments. Again, another thing that's easier said than done. The word experiments is a bit tricky. Some people don't like it because when you say experiments, things blow up. So I actually had one client that they didn't use that word, they just behaved that way because people didn't like the term experiment. They still ran them, they had hypotheses, they had measurements and things like that. They just called them tasks. So don't worry too much about the language, and don't worry about all the buzzwords surrounding experimentation. Really what you want to do is break things down into small enough pieces where you can show some actionable result on whatever cadence makes sense. Typically, I like to start with a week. So what is something tangible at the end of the week we can say, this moved the needle. So as an example, one organization I was working struggling with. They were really struggling with how to get different departments to collaborate together. So we had visualized all of the work on Kanban boards. So the development team had a Kanban board, the testing team that sat on another floor had a Kanban board. And really all we did was we tried to cross-pollinate one person from each of those departments. So for example, when the development team would do their stand-up, we had one testing person there that could say, oh, something is done in the development column. I'm physically going to take this sticky up to the 8th floor and put it on the input column of our Kanban board. Now that probably sounds kind of crazy, but that was an example of a small experiment that just started to chip away at those silos. And the more we worked at this every week, eventually those division or department level Kanban boards went away, and we focused more on team level Kanban boards where we actually had cross-functional teams. Now, what I just said in the last couple of minutes took 8 months to do, but still, you've got to start somewhere, and start by figuring out how to iteratively work through small experiments that can start to break down these silos. Next up, focus on shared goals instead of structures. And that means, what can we do to align different groups of people, that might be different departments or different teams, around some type of shared goal or shared purpose. So one organization I was working in, we were creating the activation software for cell phones. So when you walk into a store and you buy a new cell phone and you add a plan and a bunch of add-ons and stuff, our team built the software for that. So instead of just focusing on just the software and the structure, we connected to upstream and downstream departments in order to figure out how we can make that activation process faster. So basically, the faster you get people activated, the more customers you can activate, the more your revenue and customer satisfaction is going to go up. So you're not sitting in the store for a half an hour while they're using clunky software. We knew that we wanted to shrink that activation time down from 18 minutes to about 10 minutes or so. So we had a common objective, and we got that objective by connecting with the training team, with the product development team, and the downstream operational teams, so we could figure out how to accomplish that. But that was really the trigger point. It was that shared objective saying our goal is to shrink the activation time and looking at that entire value stream. And that's the language we used when we were trying to connect to up and downstream teams. Okay, finally, this one should be obvious. This is about feedback loops, so it's tied very closely to an iterative approach. So when we think about using Agile and change and using an iterative type of process, the magic is in the feedback loop. So that means we want feedback more often in smaller chunks in shorter time horizons. So maybe that is every week we look at the experiments we have in progress. What did that do to chip away at these silos? Should we continue on with this? Meaning, should we pursue this set of experiments? Should we pause, maybe stop if things aren't working, and then also pivot? So maybe it worked a little bit, but not quite what we actually thought we wanted. And maybe it produced some unexpected results, which it probably will, because when we're talking about systems and complexity, whenever you take an action on a system, you're going to get intended consequences, meaning the things you thought of that was going to maybe, kind of toss a rock into the organizational pond, and stuff that we didn't think would happen. So the faster we get that feedback, the faster we can react to it, the faster we can iterate through our next chunk of experiments. So don't let silos get you down. There's ways to break them, but you have to know your organization. Does your organization respond well to coloring outside the lines? Sometimes you might really want to scribble with red marker outside the lines and really shake things up, but you have to think about which of these 5 things is going to help you nudge things in your organization forward. Thanks for checking it out. Hit like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.